Atlas Airways, one of the world's most exclusive airlines, made a mistake so critical it would ripple across the entire luxury travel industry. They thought Sienna Morgan was just another well-dressed passenger. What they didn't realize was that she was their largest corporate partner, a powerhouse entrepreneur whose influence could decide the fate of their brand with a mere nod or a silent shake of the head. One careless action. One arrogant attitude. That was all it took to bring down a multi-million-dollar partnership. What happened wasn't just a personal injustice, it was a searing lesson about power, dignity, and the heavy price of arrogance. The international terminal gleamed under golden lighting, its glass walls reflecting the movements of sharply dressed executives and well-heeled travelers. Some clutched glasses of fine wine, others sipped artisanal coffees, each sinking into the understated luxury of the Atlas Airways first-class lounge. Every detail was curated for the privileged few. High-end leather seats arranged with geometric precision, a sleek bar stocked with rare spirits, and a team of attendants whose smiles were as rehearsed as their step patterns. It was a sanctuary of exclusivity, where opulence was whispered rather than shouted. Sienna Morgan entered with the kind of quiet authority that couldn't be faked. Her tailored black suit sculpted her figure with effortless precision. Designer heels clicked rhythmically against the marble floor as she strode in, her sleek leather handbag resting easily on her shoulder. Her hair was pulled into a polished, low bun, exposing a face marked by strength and experience rather than youth alone. She didn't need to prove herself. Yet, the moment the glass doors slid shut behind her, she felt it, the hesitation, the subtle glances, the quick but sharp assessments by the staff. Sienna had lived this moment too many times. In boardrooms filled with men who inherited their power, at galas where her success sparked murmurs behind champagne flutes, she had learned early. They weren't used to her. They weren't used to someone like her commanding the space without permission. She approached the polished mahogany reception desk and placed her platinum VIP membership card on the counter. The concierge, a young man with a perfect Windsor nod, picked it up with a courteous yet uneasy smile. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. His polished demeanor cracked barely, but enough that Sienna caught it. Without meeting her gaze, he mumbled, "One moment, Ms. Morgan," before walking briskly away. Sienna didn't react. She didn't have to. She already knew what was coming. Moments later, a woman emerged from a side door, her every step measured and precise. Her nameplate read Marissa Grant, Manager, First-Class Services. In her hand, she carried Sienna's card, as if it were something foreign, something suspicious. "Ms. Morgan," she began, voice polite but frosted with condescension. "I'm afraid we need to verify your credentials." Sienna met her gaze squarely. "I've been a platinum member of Atlas Airways for 6 years. Marissa smiled tightly, brushing her fingers across the card as if checking its authenticity. "Yes, of course. However, we've recently had issues with fraudulent VIP memberships." And there it was, the judgment, the prejudice, wrapped carefully in corporate politeness. Around the lounge, heads began to turn. A businessman in a Tom Ford suit smirked behind his newspaper. A woman in a silk Chanel ensemble exchanged hushed words with her companion. The message was clear. This woman, they thought, didn't belong. But Sienna didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. Instead, she took out her phone, scrolled calmly through her contacts, and tapped one name. "Jonathan," she said, her voice low but sharp. "Terminate our partnership with Atlas Airways. Effective immediately." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Jonathan Parks, CEO of Morgan Global Holdings, didn't ask why. He knew Sienna didn't make idle threats. "Understood," he replied gravely. Marissa Grant didn't realize it yet, but the empire she stood atop was about to tremble. Within minutes, a single phone call would send shockwaves through Atlas Airways' executive suite. PR teams would scramble. Shareholders would panic. But by the time they realized the gravity of their mistake, it would already be far too late. Sienna Morgan was not just another passenger. She was power, wrapped in resilience and armored in dignity. Her story had begun far from the polished marble floors of international terminals. Born and raised in a modest neighborhood of Detroit, Michigan, she grew up watching her mother, Jacqueline Morgan, work double shifts as a nurse, sacrificing sleep and comfort to ensure her daughter had a fighting chance in a world stacked against her. Sienna was only 8 years old when she realized the world would judge her first by the color of her skin. Her mother had taken her to an upscale boutique downtown to buy a dress for her birthday. It was meant to be a celebration, but the saleswoman's tight smile and dismissive eyes had left a different kind of impression. "I don't think we have anything here that would fit you," the woman had said, eyes flickering down to Jacqueline's worn shoes. Jacqueline didn't argue. She simply took her daughter's hand and walked out, her pride intact but her heart breaking. Sienna saw it, the pain her mother tried to hide, and from that day forward, she made herself a promise: no one would ever make them feel small again. Through high school, Sienna was relentless. Straight A's, debate team, volunteer work, anything that built her armor sharper and her spirit stronger. She secured a full scholarship to Wharton and later launched Morgan Global Holdings, transforming it into a billion-dollar powerhouse. Along the way, she learned that the highest rooms often came with the lowest expectations of people who looked like her. It didn't matter. She didn't climb her way into boardrooms to seek validation. She came to rewrite the rules. The deal with Atlas Airways had been strategic, essential, even a guarantee of seamless travel for her executives, investors, and clients worldwide. In return, Atlas Airways gained access to Morgan Global's lucrative clientele. It was a relationship worth tens of millions annually. Until today. Until one VIP lounge manager mistook prejudice for policy and arrogance for authority. The entire structure that Atlas Airways built on exclusivity and privilege was about to collapse under the weight of one incontrovertible truth: power doesn't always wear the face you expect. And Sienna Morgan was about to remind the world why respect, not arrogance, was the true currency of lasting success. As Sienna left the counter, the lounge seemed to shift around her. Conversation stalled. Eyes flickered toward her with a mixture of curiosity, disbelief, and in some cases, fear. She didn't need to say another word. Her power had already begun unraveling the meticulously curated facade that Atlas Airways had spent decades constructing. She adjusted the cuff of her blazer, her movement slow and deliberate, as the murmur of whispered speculation started rippling through the VIP lounge. Behind her, Marissa Grant stood frozen at the desk, the platinum card still clutched between her fingers, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Meanwhile, Jonathan Parks, true to his word, moved quickly. Within 30 minutes, Morgan Global Holdings officially announced the termination of all contracts with Atlas Airways. The internal communications reached Atlas top executives almost simultaneously. Panic set in like a slow but unstoppable flood. An emergency meeting was called. Board members huddled around a gleaming mahogany table in the top floor of the Atlas Tower, the view of the city skyline now feeling less triumphant and more like a fragile illusion. "We have a situation," the chief operating officer said grimly. "That's putting it lightly," barked the chief financial officer. "We just lost our most valuable corporate client because a lounge manager couldn't check her biases at the door." Emails flew across departments. Damage control plans were drafted, PR statements prepared. But it was already too late. The story exploded onto social media before Atlas could even craft a coherent response. Someone, an anonymous bystander, had recorded the entire exchange. The footage was short, raw, and undeniable. It captured the exact moment Marissa scrutinized Sienna's card like it was counterfeit, the cold inflection of her voice as she questioned Sienna's right to be there, and most damning of all, the unbothered, chilling calm with which Sienna ended the multi-million-dollar relationship without raising her voice. Within hours, the video had gone viral. #BoycottAtlas trended worldwide. News outlets picked it up like wildfire. Forbes, Bloomberg, CNN, BBC, even the Wall Street Journal. Articles with titles like "How One Woman Took Down a Billion-Dollar Airline in 30 Seconds" and "The Cost of Arrogance, The Fall of Atlas Airways" flooded the media. Financial analysts tore apart Atlas Airways' stock performance on live television. Pundits and influencers posted reaction videos, dissecting every moment of the clip like scholars analyzing a historical event. Memes, satire, and think pieces spread like wildfire. Customers began canceling their memberships in droves. Corporate partners distanced themselves publicly. Luxury travel forums buzzed with recommendations for alternatives. The downfall was relentless and total. Marissa Grant was called into a closed-door meeting the very next morning. The head of human resources didn't mince words. "You're terminated immediately for cause. Your behavior has caused irreparable damage to this company." Marissa didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply nodded, shell-shocked. She left the building she had once ruled like a minor queen without ceremony or dignity, just a box of belongings and a reputation in tatters. But the crisis wasn't confined to Marissa alone. Atlas Airways CEO, Walter Sinclair, was forced to resign under shareholder pressure. The board of directors announced a sweeping restructuring. PR executives were fired. Heads of departments were replaced. The brand itself, once synonymous with untouchable luxury, became a case study in corporate arrogance for MBA courses around the world. Meanwhile, Sienna Morgan remained silent. She gave no interviews, no grandstanding social media posts, no self-congratulatory statements. Her silence was louder than any microphone. It was the silence of someone who didn't need to prove a point. She had already moved on. When Celestial Airways, a rising star in luxury travel, reached out to her with a proposal, it wasn't just an offer, it was a statement. Celestial wasn't interested merely in acquiring Morgan Global's business. They wanted to partner with Sienna to redefine the very concept of luxury travel. Meetings moved swiftly. Sienna's legal and executive teams negotiated strict policies embedded into the new contract: mandatory diversity and bias training for all customer-facing employees, transparent accountability measures, zero-tolerance clauses for discriminatory behavior, and even customer feedback programs directly overseen by an independent board. The contract was signed in a grand but solemn ceremony at Celestial's headquarters. Press flooded the event. Cameras flashed. Reporters elbowed for position. The CEO of Celestial, Richard Langston, stood at the podium beside Sienna and delivered a message that would echo across industries. Luxury is not an excuse for exclusion. True prestige is measured by respect, not appearances. Today, we are proud to set a new standard for our industry, and we are honored to do it alongside Miss Sienna Morgan. Sienna smiled, a real, quiet smile this time, not one born of battle, but one of purpose fulfilled. The partnership was more than symbolic. It sparked a movement across industries. Other luxury brands rushed to examine and reform their internal practices. Airline competitors rolled out new initiatives promising more inclusive treatment. Luxury hotels, private clubs, even financial firms began revisiting their customer service protocols. Corporate America had been put on notice. The dominoes kept falling for Atlas Airways. They lost not just business, but legitimacy. Within 6 months, after multiple failed rebranding attempts and dwindling bookings, Atlas Airways filed for bankruptcy protection. Their brand, once so hallowed, was dismantled piece by piece in public view. In a final twist of irony, Celestial Airways acquired many of Atlas' former routes, staff, and even some of their flagship lounges. But none of it was salvaged under the Atlas name. That name was finished. Back in Detroit, Sienna returned home one quiet afternoon to her modest childhood street. She parked her silver Tesla under the same rustling oaks she had known as a little girl. Walking up the worn steps to her mother's small but sturdy house, she found Jacqueline Morgan waiting on the porch, a steaming cup of coffee in her hand. "You did good," her mother said simply, without ceremony. Sienna sat down beside her. They watched the sunset together in comfortable silence. For all the boardrooms she had conquered, all the contracts she had signed, it was this small, quiet victory that meant the most. She hadn't just made noise. She had made change. She had honored every tear her mother once refused to shed in that boutique so many years ago. And somewhere in the sprawling world of glass towers, private jets, and gold-plated boardrooms, the message reverberated, quiet but unstoppable. Real power does not ask permission. It moves the world without shouting. It demands respect without lifting a sword. And Sienna Morgan, daughter of Detroit, woman of steel, had just redrawn the map.